It was still early. The school corridors were quiet, the kind of quiet that only exists before the first bell rings. Elijah stepped through the front entrance of Middleton Academy holding a plain canvas tote, a thermos of coffee, and a manila folder tucked under one arm. The floors gleamed. Everything smelled faintly of lemon polish and old wood. The walls were lined with award plaques, oil paintings of past headmasters, and large framed group photos of graduating classes. No one greeted him. He walked slowly, taking it in. Students weren't in yet, just a few staff scattered here and there. He passed a woman arranging brochures on a table near the main office. She glanced up briefly, gave a tight nod, then looked back down. He kept walking, scanning the nameplates on each classroom door. He hadn't been given keys yet. "Sir?" The voice came from behind him. He turned. A tall woman in a blazer and pencil skirt stood with a walkie clipped to her waist. Her tone was clipped, professional, but not warm. "You're not supposed to be down here. Maintenance uses the side entrance before 7:30. Elijah blinked once, slowly. "I'm not with maintenance." She frowned slightly. "Then you'll need to check in at the front. Visitors are required to sign in before walking the halls." He didn't argue. Instead, he opened the folder and handed her the paper on top. She took it, scanning quickly. Her eyes paused at the header. Faculty orientation packet, then dropped to his name. Elijah Brooks, English Department. Her lips parted slightly, but she said nothing. He took the paper back. "I was told to arrive early. Ms. Patterson said someone would meet me, but I figured I'd find my way." She looked at him a little longer this time. A faint shift, embarrassment, confusion. She smoothed her skirt. "Oh, well, welcome. We've just had a lot of contractors in this week. Renovations. It's fine," he said simply. He didn't smile. Didn't frown either. Just stood there, still, composed. From somewhere down the hall, a bell chimed. The main office was busier now. Phones ringing, voices low and clipped, the rustle of papers and coffee cups settling onto desks. Elijah waited by the sign-in sheet while the receptionist looked up his name. She was younger, maybe late 20s, blonde hair in a tight bun, her nails tapping on the keyboard as she searched. "You said Brooks?" she asked without looking up. "Yes, Elijah Brooks. New faculty." Tap, tap, scroll. "Oh," a pause. "Okay, found you. You're with the upper school, right? 11th and 12th? That's right." She gave a small nod, still not quite making eye contact. "Orientation starts in the library in 10 minutes. You can take a seat in there. Someone will bring you your badge later." He nodded, thanked her, and walked toward the wide double doors marked library. A man in a slim gray suit came out just as Elijah reached the threshold. They almost bumped into each other. "Whoa, sorry, didn't see you," the man said, stepping aside. "Custodial crew's still around, yeah? There's a leak near room 104. Elijah didn't answer. The man looked at him again, more carefully this time. "Oh, wait, are you Elijah Brooks?" he replied calmly, extending a hand. The man's face shifted, a flicker of something awkward before he covered it with a bright smile. "Right, yes, Mr. Brooks, English. I'm Ben Calloway, Assistant Dean." They shook hands. "Glad you're here," Calloway added, already stepping backward. "Library's through there. Coffee in the back. See you in a bit." Elijah entered. Inside, the library was quiet but expectant. A few new hires were already seated, most of them white, dressed in business casual or prep school tweed. Laptops open. Polite murmurs exchanged across the table. Elijah took the seat at the end. No one looked up. He set his folder down, took a sip of his coffee. Behind him, someone whispered, "Is he tech support?" No one answered. Elijah didn't turn around. He was used to this part. What they hadn't realized yet, what they were minutes from learning, was that the opening remarks wouldn't be made by the dean or the principal. They'd be made by him. 10 minutes passed. More staff trickled in, some old, some new. The side chatter grew. Books shuffled. Laptops clicked open. A few glanced Elijah's way, but no one said much. Someone across from him nodded politely, then went back to his iPad. At 8 hours sharp, a woman entered from the rear of the library, holding a clipboard and wearing an earpiece. She scanned the room and raised her voice just enough. "Good morning, everyone. If you could settle in, we'll begin shortly." The room quieted. "Welcome to faculty orientation. You'll be hearing from the dean later this morning, but to start, I'd like to introduce someone we're proud to have join our leadership team this year." She looked down at the clipboard, then back up. "Please welcome Elijah Brooks, our new head of upper school." The room didn't react at first. Someone coughed. A chair creaked. A few faces turned toward the back door, expecting someone to walk in. But Elijah was already standing. He stepped calmly to the front of the room, passing the rows of confused glances and slow realizations. Some eyebrows lifted. One of the new hires sat up straighter, blinking twice. A woman with a pearl necklace looked away, suddenly interested in the pattern on the rug. Elijah didn't pause. He placed his folder on the lectern, looked up. No slides, no notes, just him. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm, steady. "I'm Elijah Brooks. I'll be overseeing the upper school this year." Now the silence meant something different. Uneasy smiles, tightened shoulders. A few people who had ignored him earlier were suddenly very attentive. "I know starting at a new school can feel disorienting," he continued, "especially when someone doesn't look the way you expect." He let the sentence linger, just long enough, and that's okay, for now. No one moved. Elijah's expression didn't change, not angry, just still. Then he turned the page in his folder. Let's begin. He started with logistics, calendar changes, departmental liaisons, academic goals for the fall semester. His tone was measured, efficient. No embellishment, just clarity. But no one was really focused on the paperwork. The room was still adjusting. People who had dismissed him in the hallway now avoided his eyes. A few scribbled notes too quickly. Others sat unusually still. Even the assistant dean, Ben Calloway, had stopped his usual bouncing leg. Elijah didn't comment on it. He didn't need to. At one point, the woman with the clipboard returned quietly and placed a name badge beside his folder. Mr. Elijah Brooks, head of upper school. The laminated tag gleamed under the overhead lights. He didn't put it on. Instead, he continued speaking, flipping to the next agenda item. "We're also going to take a close look at how we welcome students," he said, "especially those who aren't immediately recognized as fitting in." That line landed hard. He let it hang for a beat. A few people shifted in their chairs. Across the room, a new science teacher, young, white, with a sharp jawline and Patagonia fleece, coughed into his hand and stared at the table. "I've been at schools like this before," Elijah added, "where assumptions walk ahead of introductions." He didn't say more, didn't name names, just continued with the orientation slides, but the message was clear, and everyone in that room felt it. They weren't just meeting their new supervisor, they were being seen. By mid-morning, the tension had settled into something subtler, no longer sharp, just present, a background hum. Elijah kept his pace steady. Department introductions, upcoming curriculum review, expectations for student advising. His tone never changed, but his presence filled the room. Across from him, a math teacher kept glancing up from his notebook, as if trying to remap everything he thought he knew about Elijah from 5 minutes of hallway observation. A woman near the window scribbled notes furiously, then stopped, looked up at Elijah, and tapped her pen once on her page before returning to her writing. Slower now. One of the newer hires, a woman in a red blouse, leaned over to whisper something to her neighbor. The neighbor didn't reply, just stared straight ahead. No one laughed, no one interrupted. There was no small talk now, just listening. At one point, Elijah paused to sip his coffee, the same thermos he'd carried in earlier. Now, everyone knew. He scanned the room. "These first few days aren't about proving anything," he said. "They're about paying attention, to students, to each other, to the ways we show or withhold respect." He didn't smile. He just went on, because he wasn't here to make anyone comfortable. He was here to set the tone. At 11:15, the bell rang through the halls, a soft chime. Students had started arriving. Laughter, footsteps, lockers slamming, life returning to the building. Inside the library, Elijah closed his folder. "That's all for now. You'll get department-specific schedules after lunch. I'll meet with each of you individually over the next few weeks." Some people exhaled. Others stood too quickly, but no one left immediately. They lingered. Elijah stepped aside, gathering his notes. The room moved around him, but subtly, like people rearranging themselves in a space they suddenly realized didn't belong to them alone. Ben Calloway approached again, hands in his pockets, smiling too much. "Powerful first impression," he said. "You've got their attention." "I wasn't trying for that," Elijah replied calmly. "Just being clear." "Right, of course." Ben nodded. "Hey, if you need anything, just let me know. Seriously." "I will." Ben hesitated, then drifted off. By the doorway, the woman with the clipboard glanced up as Elijah passed. "Sorry again," she said under her breath. "About earlier. You weren't the only one," he said. Not unkindly, just true. She nodded and looked down. Elijah stepped into the hallway. Students streamed past, some laughing, some half asleep, others glued to their phones. A few glanced at him, most didn't, but soon enough they would. And unlike the staff, they wouldn't need time to relearn what respect looks like. Not if he did his job right. After lunch, Elijah walked the halls. No clipboard, no name tag, just his calm, steady stride, and the tote slung over his shoulder. The school was fully alive now, students filing into rooms, teachers calling for quiet, the scent of dry erase markers and cafeteria pizza still lingering in the air. He stopped outside room 217, 12th grade English, his own classroom. The door was already propped open, and a few seniors had arrived early. One boy in a Letterman jacket lounged near the back, earbuds in. A girl near the front had her legs crossed, phone raised, filming herself for what looked like a class vlog. They barely noticed him. Elijah stepped inside. He placed his tote on the desk, opened it slowly, pulled out a stack of paper syllabi and set them down. Then he walked to the whiteboard and picked up a marker. Mr. Brooks, English full fall term. The marker squeaked faintly. Someone in the back looked up. Then another. The girl with the phone lowered it slightly. You are sub? One of them asked. No, Elijah said without turning around. I'm the teacher. That was it. No explanation. No need to assert anything. He capped the marker and faced the room. You can take your seats. We're going to get started. They settled in slowly, still unsure. A few exchanged glances. One student whispered something behind his hand and chuckled. The girl in the front row opened a new note on her tablet, stylus ready, but her gaze fixed on Elijah like she was trying to figure him out. Elijah didn't rush. He waited until the room was quiet, truly quiet. Then he spoke. This class isn't about memorizing Shakespeare or diagramming sentences, he said. It's about learning to see yourself, other people, the world around you. Silent, not boredom, not yet, just listening. We'll read Baldwin.Morrison.Orwell. A few voices you've probably heard, some you haven't. Now he had them. The boy in the Letterman jacket leaned forward, resting his forearms on the desk. You'll write more than you want to, Elijah continued, and you'll get every one of your papers back with notes that expect better. He said it flatly, not harsh, not warm, just certain, because he knew what they'd been told to expect, what they thought this class and this teacher might be, and he was already changing that. One student raised her hand, hesitant, a red hoodie, sleeves pulled down over her knuckles. Are you new to Middleton? Elijah nodded once. Yes, like just moved here or… He met her eyes. Just new to this room, not to what I do. The class fell quiet again, not awkward, respectful. They were beginning to see it now. What the staff had only started to understand that morning, he didn't have to prove himself, he just had to speak. Midway through the period, Elijah asked them to take out a sheet of paper. Old school, no laptops. Write me something, he said. Anything, a paragraph, a thought, a question. Doesn't have to be good, just honest. The room shifted, groaned, eye rolls, but they complied. Pens scratched softly. A few stared into space, thinking. Others scribbled quickly. One student tapped his pencil without writing a word. The girl in the red hoodie hunched low over her desk, sleeves still covering her hands, moving her pen with care. Elijah walked between the rows. He didn't look over their shoulders, didn't interrupt, just moved quietly, letting them adjust to the stillness. After 5 minutes, he stopped at the front again. Who's ready to share? No hands. He didn't push. Instead, he picked up a slip of paper someone had already folded and left on the corner of his desk. No name, just one sentence in neat handwriting. Do you think people really change, or do they just learn to hide better? Elijah read it once, then again. He looked at the class. Whoever wrote this, he said, holding the paper gently. Thank you. Then he paused, letting the question breathe. Some people hide better, he said softly. But the ones who really change, they stop hiding at all. No one moved. The girl in the red hoodie lowered her eyes. The boy in the back uncrossed his arms. And just like that, they weren't just sitting in a classroom anymore. They were sitting in something real. By the end of the day, the story had already started to ripple. In the faculty lounge, it began as a murmur. Did you hear about the new upper school head? Apparently, he walked the halls before orientation. No one even knew who he was. Someone thought he was a sub, or facilities. Ben Calloway tried to steer the tone when he joined the conversation. He's sharp, he said quickly. Direct. Knows what he's doing. One of the science teachers nodded slowly. Yeah, but he saw us before we saw him. Down the hallway, 2 administrative assistants stood by the copier. One leaned in slightly, voice low. I told him to check in at the front desk. He just nodded, didn't even flinch. You didn't know. I didn't ask. In the cafeteria, a group of students shared rumors between bites of pizza. He didn't smile once. But he's not mean. No, he's just serious, like he expects you to get it. Someone pulled up a Reddit thread already forming. New English teacher at Middleton. What's his deal? The top comment read, he doesn't need to raise his voice. He is the voice. Meanwhile, Elijah sat alone in his classroom. The last bell had rung. Students gone. The hallway slowly emptying. He picked up the anonymous question again, folded it, slid it into his folder. He wasn't surprised by the reaction. He'd just given them something they weren't used to: visibility, authority, without explanation. And that kind of presence doesn't go unnoticed. Not here. That evening, Elijah stood in front of the mirror in his small apartment. No tie, no blazer, just the same navy polo he'd worn all day. He looked at himself quietly. It wasn't vanity, it was assessment. Not, do I look like someone who belongs there? But, do I look like myself? And was that enough today? His reflection didn't answer. He thought about the question on the paper again. Do people change, or just learn to hide better? He had seen both. He had once been the youngest teacher in a room full of doubt, had once stayed quiet when assumptions were made, just to survive the week. Now he was the one holding the silent, choosing when to speak, watching people shift under the weight of their own assumptions. He didn't enjoy that, but he didn't avoid it either. He turned off the bathroom light, moved to the small desk by the window, opened his laptop, began typing names, students, teachers, the ones who had looked away, and the ones who had started to lean in. He didn't need to write it down, but he always did, because it wasn't about remembering. It was about accountability. The next morning, the air felt different. Teachers were more careful, not performative, just slower. Greetings were more deliberate. Eye contact held longer, as if people were trying to undo something without admitting it had ever happened, Elijah noticed. In the copy room, the receptionist from the day before passed him a printed packet without being asked. "Mr. Brooks," she said softly, "I put these on heavier stock, easier to annotate." He nodded. "Thank you." She smiled quickly, then busied herself with the paper cutter. In the main office, Ben Calloway approached again, this time with a printed calendar in a plastic sleeve. "I updated the advisory schedule. Thought you might want a hard copy." Elijah accepted it. "Appreciate it." Ben lingered. "You settling in okay?" "I'm fine." Ben shifted. "I didn't realize. Yesterday. I should have." Elijah looked up. "You did what most people do." Ben fell quiet, and that was enough. No grudge, no lesson delivered, just truth. As Elijah left the office, a student walking past raised a hand and said, "Morning, Mr. Brooks." It was the girl in the red hoodie. He nodded once. "Morning." She smiled, not nervous this time, just sure. And behind her, a teacher opened the door for a group of students, pausing to let them pass first. No one talked about it, but they felt it. The atmosphere was shifting, not through speeches or rules, but through presence, quiet, firm, unshakable. And it was only day 2. After lunch, a commotion stirred outside room 217. 2 students, both seniors, stood chest to chest near the lockers, voices raised, tension tight. Elijah was already in the hallway before anyone called for help. He didn't shout. He just walked up. "Stop." One word. Calm. Final. The students froze. Elijah stepped between them, not aggressively, just directly. He didn't ask what happened. Didn't need to. Not yet. "Back to class," he said to the boy on the right. But the student started, then met Elijah's eyes and stopped. He turned and left. To the one still standing, "Come with me." Elijah led him down the hall in silence, into a small conference room near the main office, closed the door, sat down. The student stayed standing. Elijah waited, let the silence work. Finally, the boy spoke. "He shoved me first." Elijah nodded once. "And your next move was going to be?" The boy didn't answer. "That's the part that matters," Elijah said. "Not how it started, how you choose to end it." The student looked down. "I wasn't going to hit him." "You already did, with your voice, with your body, with your choice to stand there instead of step back." It wasn't anger in Elijah's voice, just clarity. "You want respect? Learn how to de-escalate. That's what grown men do." The student's jaw flexed, then loosened. Elijah stood, walked to the door. "You'll come see me after last period. We're going to talk more, and you're going to write down what you should have done instead." The student didn't argue. He just nodded and followed him out. By the next day, word had spread. Again. But not about orientation, not about assumption, not about who Elijah was. This time, it was about how he handled the hallway fight. No shouting, no office referrals, no power plays, just presence, calm, authority without a raised voice. Students talked about it between classes. He didn't even touch them. He just said one word, and they froze. "Dude's different." In the faculty lounge, someone brought it up over coffee. "Did you hear about that incident near the lockers?" Elijah handled it himself. No call to security. "Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be." Even the principal stopped him near the stairwell. "Appreciate how you de-escalated yesterday," she said. "Could have gone the other way." Elijah nodded. "That's why I was there." "You always that calm under pressure?" He looked at her for a long second. "I've had practice." And that was all he said. But it was enough, because even those who still didn't know him, fully, personally, were beginning to understand something deeper. He wasn't trying to impress. He was building something, not with noise, but with consistency. Friday came. The week had moved slowly, but not in a bad way, more like a new rhythm setting in. Not everyone had adjusted, but they were watching, listening more. In room 217, the last class of the day was packing up. Backpacks zipped, chairs scraped, the usual rustle before freedom. Elijah stood by the door as they filed out. Quiet nods, a few small smiles. The girl in the red hoodie gave a small wave before disappearing into the crowd. Then, one student paused. The boy from the hallway incident. He stepped in, held out a folded piece of paper. "I finished the reflection," he said. "Didn't know if I was supposed to give it to you or—" Elijah took it. Didn't open it right away. "Was it honest?" he asked. The student nodded. "Yeah, then that's enough." He placed it on the desk without looking at it. The boy lingered. "I didn't think someone like you would—" he hesitated, "would talk to me like that. Not after what I did." Elijah looked at him. "I didn't talk to you like anything. I just saw you clearly." The student didn't respond, but something in his posture softened. He left. The door clicked shut behind him. Elijah sat down. The room was empty now. Late sunlight streaked across the floor. Quiet. He finally opened the folded paper. At the bottom of the student's writing, below a few rough sentences and scratched out lines, one sentence stood alone. "I want to be the kind of man who doesn't need to raise his voice either." Elijah folded the paper again, slipped it into his folder. That's why he was here. Not to be seen, but to make others feel seen, and maybe, just maybe, changed by it.